So hi and welcome to episode 142 of Level Up, 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions drive the show. Shanice and Adrian are in the chat, so please say hi to them, let them know which city you're watching from and what your name is, and get involved in the conversation in the chat lines. Another way to do this is get your questions in early. Okay? You post them in the chat if you want to, or use the QR code that you're going to see coming up on screen from your mobile phone. That'll allow you to enter questions directly into Slido, which is our question app. We will, of course, post a link in the chat to vote up the questions that you would like most like answered, and of course for you to go and add your own as well. If your question is selected, your name's going to appear in the credits at the end of the show, so get your questions in early and stay with us to see that happen. So now moving on to today's topic, we're talking about how to become a PMO specialist. Now, one of the PMO specialist roles, obviously, is to support multiple projects and assist them in getting delivered on time and on budget. Those kind of people also work with program managers, project managers, and in general, the project team to ensure everything goes smoothly. So today, we're going to take a deep dive into how to become a PMO specialist. So in order to answer that question, and what is a PMO specialist, and of course, all of your questions, we've got a wonderful panel joining us today. So let's jump right in and meet them. So firstly, I'd like to introduce Eileen Roden. So Eileen is an accomplished PMO professional. She's a consultant and the co-founder of the House of PMO and a consulting director at PMO Learning. She brings her experience as a practitioner and trainer to literally everything that she does. And I think her proudest achievement professionally is the launching of the House of PMO, which is really a home for all PMO professionals. Welcome, Eileen.
Hi, good to be here, Nigel, and it's great to talk about how to become a PMO specialist, because one of the great things about the PMO is, anybody can move in there.
Good point, Eileen. Good point. Absolutely. Thanks. So moving on to our next panelist, Adrian Pyne. Although I think he's partly retired, he's also the head of governance and a trustee of Melanoma, which is a new cancer research organization. He's an author of a ton of different works, most notably the book Agile Beyond IT, which has quite a bit in it about PMOs. He's an advisor, a coach, a visiting lecturer and writer on organizational project management agility, and a 35-year-old project veteran in 11 different commercial industries, including the public sector in the UK and abroad. So welcome, Adrian.
Thank you for taking 30-odd years off my life. That's just brilliant. 35 years in the profession. Yeah, it's fantastic to be here and answering questions on this. Yeah, how to get into working, being a PMO specialist. Yeah, it's a massive enabling area of the project profession. So yeah, good. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. I'm sure we all are, as is the audience. Holger Heuss has over 20 years of experience advising and managing both business and IT organizations, including direct management of teams with over 30 resources, change implementations with over 23,000 affected end users, multi-million-pound programs across multiple sectors. And he's been involved and delivered many successful global transformation programs in complex multinational organizations. So great to have you on the panel, Holger.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Nigel. I'm absolutely excited, as always, to provide some insight and meet like-minded people. I believe the session is absolutely pertinent, given that the role of the PMO, I believe, is changing. And not only that, it's becoming ever more important for the success of an organization to pursue enterprise agility.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be an interesting discussion, that's for sure. All right. I'd just like to welcome back Josyph Hernandez as well. Josyph's a program, portfolio, and project management professional. He also experienced all across the public and private sectors. He's been working with the Australian federal government agencies and leading a lot of global organizations in those endeavors. As a program and PMO manager, I think he's delivered transition and transformation programs and projects for just about all types of P3O offices, setting them up as well. Welcome back, Josyph.
Thank you for having me here today.
We always enjoy having you here, Josyph. Thank you once again. And lastly, but not least, we've got Sarbojit Bose, who's the owner and managing director of a training and consultancy services called Cyberservices in Singapore. Sarbojit is a prominent member of the IT service management community. And in addition to training, he speaks a lot at various cybersecurity and cloud conferences in Singapore. But I think Sarbojit has quite a bit of experience setting up different PMOs as well. So great to have you on the panel again, Sarbojit.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward for a great an hour of talking about PMO. Yes, that's what we have been doing for ages. And it's a wonderful thing to share with our listeners today. Thank you.
Fantastic. And last but not least, our question master for today is Charlotte Miller, who is joining us from the Thames Valley. Welcome, Charlotte.
Hi, Nigel. Hello, panelists, and hello to our viewers.
Absolutely. Charlotte, let's dive right in. What is our first question, please?
Thanks, Nigel. We've got a question from Moses Gabon. What are the main functions of a PMO and why is this a good career choice?
Wow, okay. So I think that's a double barrel question there. We've got two parts to this. So what are the main functions and why is it a good career choice? I think we'll start off with Eileen and then we'll go to Adrian. So let's go and do that.
Okay, so the main functions of PMO align completely with project, program, and portfolio management. So if you think about all of the areas of project management in terms of risk management, issue management, reporting, they're all covered in the PMO because we will set the standards in the PMO in terms of and support project, program, portfolio managers to do every element of their project. So such one of the reasons why it's such a great career choice is because it has the opportunity to specialize in a whole range of different subjects.
Makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. I like that. It allows you to specialize in a whole host of different subjects, whereas in many other professions, you are quite limited to one or two areas for sure. Thank you, Eileen. Adrian, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think in terms of the function PMO, just as slightly extending what Eileen said, PMOs, especially at the enterprise level, have a bit of a schizophrenic life because on the one hand, they are the center of governance, as it were, for a portfolio of programs and projects. But equally, when they're really mature, they're also, as Eileen said, they're the guides, they're the helpers, making sure that the appropriate guidance and standards that are used within an organization are well used. And so they've got this sort of dichotomous role between, if you like, policing and assistance, which we may get into in other questions. So being able to master those two different relationships with program and project professionals can be quite a challenge, and it's a great learning environment.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point there. It is really two different roles in one. And I think the governance aspect is quite a challenging one, particularly depending on the organizational culture. Wouldn't you say, Adrian?
I absolutely would, and particularly so. Again, if we get onto the subject agility, I won't cover it now. But yes, it's absolute. It's a critical. The others will say this probably even better than me. It's a critical bridge between the organization culture in its widest sense, people, process, and tools, and the portfolio of programs and projects.
Thanks, Adrian. That makes perfect sense. Sarbojit, what are your thoughts?
Hi. Well, Adrian spoke about a lot of things in the PMO side of it. I want to talk about why it's a good career choice, because today, if you are a part of the PMO, there's kind of no end to things because, as we know, it's not only that it's covering projects, programs, and portfolios. And we know today every organization is projectized. We do not have the earlier of a Gothic structure of organization where it is all fixed on just specific function areas. But today, with more of a semi-structured and cross-functional teams, we have projects and program. And there, PMO plays the most critical role because they are the one who are holding on to this framework of project programs and portfolios. They manage all the teams. They are just like, as we said, as Adrian said, so they are the ones who are guides and also the gods of this project program and portfolio. So there are a lot of skills that we can get. And today, as we talk about agile and DevOps, and we are talking about multi-skilling, so there are enormous opportunity for any individual to grow the skill set. So that's why I would say this is the best career choice today that's in front of anyone. And anyone who wants to start from any of these skill sets can start and then grow. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarbojit. That makes, I think that puts a lot of thought into people's heads. Holger, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I want to primarily focus on the main functions of a PMO. So my working assumption is we're talking about an enterprise level PMO. My terminology has moved on. So I might have, in the earlier years of my career, talked about functions. This is now the services a PMO provides. And I think Adrian would probably immediately agree with that. It's the new component and the new way of addressing the work a PMO would provide. We talked 20 years ago about a facilitation center versus a control tower. It's very clear that the latest iterations of PMOs have moved towards providing a service, more facilitation center, helping the organization to develop further. In terms of the services provided by a PMO, typically, I think that depends on the organizational setup and what is required and what is seen as being of the highest value to the sponsor and the key stakeholders of that PMO. So important for that, for example, is the reporting line, who you work for. It will make a difference what you do. One of the surveys I conducted together with PMO Learning was about what is the most important service provided by a PMO, and by a long mile, the key service provided is reporting. I would probably add to that management information. It's very clear for me why it's the best, one of the best career choices. Although I more stumbled into this space than anything else, it wasn't a designed path that was in front of me. You do understand first the topic of program and project management very well, and you learn it from the bottom up. So you can't possibly move sideways or upwards on the left and right being a project manager, program manager. You can become a PMO specialist, director, manager, or when you move through the gears, you will have to understand much more of your company. So that enables you to get lots of insight and sideway moves. For me, tremendously helpful. As people might know, I'm a lodger at the House of PMO and look after portfolio management and PMO, and I'm in the music room. The PMO orchestrates the organization.
That's a great quote, Holger. The PMO orchestrates the organization. I really like that one. Do you mind if I use that one at some point?
Feel free. There's no copyright on it.
No copyright. Fantastic. Eileen, I think you wanted to jump back in there.
I did, and I it's interesting, isn't it? Because what we've got on the panel today are some very experienced people in around PMOs, and I don't want that to put anybody off, because I think one of the great things about a PMO is that there are very much kind of entry level positions for people to take in the PMO. Holger was talking about some of the services that are provided, and from a PMO perspective, and we always kind of wince when we talk about kind of project and program administration, but actually that is a service that is very important for a lot of organizations. And so some of the kind of entry level positions that are in a PMO allow you to build up your knowledge of project and program management. Nobody will expect you to go into the PMO and suddenly be the world's expert in things like kind of risk management or kind of scheduling. So you can get in there with some kind of good generic transferable skills and build up your knowledge of individual areas of PMO, build up the right kind of behaviors that we need in the PMO to really build a culture of good project and program delivery in the organization.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for those wonderful answers. So I think we've got an absolutely phenomenal amount of people online at the moment. So I just want to welcome a couple of people. So Angelo from Canada, welcome, my friend. Hopefully you're enjoying the show. We've got so many people from around the world here. We've got Olusegun from Nigeria, we've got Amira from Sudan. We've got Julian, welcome as well, online as well. And I believe we've got Etienne Shardlow from South Africa, Heuss from where? Where's Heuss from? From all over the place. We've got people, Lumka. Wow, there's just so many folks online at the moment. And a lot of folks who are making comments, and keep those comments coming, everybody. We really want to hear from you guys. And, tell us your experiences about working in a PMO. What are the challenges that you face? And don't forget, get your questions in for this panel to answer today. All right, Charlotte, may we move on and take the next question, please?
You may, Nigel. Got a question from one of our panelists. Adrian, what makes a good PMO person?
So, Adrian, I think we'll come to you last on this one. We'll start with Josyph. Josyph, why don't you kick us off?
Thank you very much. I believe a good PMO person is someone who has a growth mindset, someone who's flexible in their thinking, and also historically, a good person used to be someone who had at least 5 to 10 years of experience running projects when PMO started. And as technology advances and is offered as a service, we have younger and younger people starting in the PMO as a supporting role, enabling delivery, enabling the stakeholders, and also being of help to those around in whatever capacity, coordination, project support, scheduling. So a good person is someone, for a PMO, is someone who has that ability to fit into a team and be of help, be of support. And also, as they get better at what they do and they discover the good frameworks to follow and the good artifacts to manage, they become more experienced, then they can step into more advisory type of roles, consulting roles, teaching roles, training roles, even coaching roles with the staff. And as they develop the trust in themselves, then it's not a matter anymore of being a good PMO person. It's just you being a good human supporting others.
I like that. Being a good human support in others, absolutely true. Thanks, Josyph. Sarbojit, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Josyph, I like your last part of it. It's about the people. Now, what I want to mention here is about that a PMO person or a specialist needs to know about the organization process and the procedures and the policies, because when we are working in a projects portfolio and in our programs, so the best practices of those have to be implemented by the respective manager. So PMO is the one who are holding the fort for them, who provide all the actual processes. So a PMO person should know the processes and procedures so that they can hold it up for the organization. They should also understand the business, because end of the day, the process doesn't make any sense unless the business objectives are met. So they should have a good understanding of the business requirements, and they should also have some knowledge about the tools which are being used in these areas of projects, whether it's on scheduling, whether it's a time management, whether it's effort management, whether it's change management, communication. And there are a lot of things that are being used today, integrated collaboration tools which are used, and more of these things are becoming more popular. So, and not only that, there are new thoughts which are coming in agile. We are not only just having simple agile, we are going into safe, we are going into lean, we are going into DevOps. So there are so many areas which are also influencing the project management, program management. So there is a whole lot of things that a PMO, a good PMO person should possess, the characters and the skills. So I think these are only a few of them, and some of my panelist friends will be mentioning more. So I want to draw my line here. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarbojit. You make very good points here, definitely. Holger, I think you would like to add something.
Yeah, so Adrian, I'm not quite sure what you were aiming at. The association I made was the word person in here. So I did reflect much less on capabilities you can build up over time. For me, it's more the behaviors and the attitude of the individual that would like to be in a PMO and possibly grow in a PMO. And for those who know the concept of the different social styles, I think 3/4 of that concept are applicable. And if a PMO person is able to move between being an amiable person, an analytic, and a directive person, that would go a long, long way to address different needs different stakeholder communities will have at different times. There will be the point in time when some management information needs to be provided, and the PMO probably needs to be more in a position to be assertive, directive, and getting the information, because some major decisions might depend on that. On another day, analytic, so providing information to the board, not just putting the numbers together, but being an analytic and getting to the bottom of it, making scenario planning available for the board, how it would impact. And last but not least, probably the most important one, reflection on Josyph's commentary probably at the beginning, being an amiable person. So being good with people to start with, to establish a relationship, so they can actually later in life, when it comes to it, be directive and ask them for more than just help, but it needs to be done.
Yeah, Holger, I agree with you. I just wanted to ask you, how important do you think are facilitation skills in this?
Paramount.
Paramount, yeah.
Those of the agile community will know the term servant leadership. You don't necessarily have to be a leader, but as a PMO, typically at enterprise level at least, you represent the organization. And for me, that comes with being a servant leader in your role. If you do risk management as a PMO person and that's your job, you should be a leader in that topic, but a servant leader to the organization. Don't forget who you work for and what the outcome should be.
Agreed. Don't always focus on the outcomes at the end. Thank you, Holger. Eileen?
Just fascinating listening to all of the various kind of descriptions of the type of person who works in a PMO. And one of the things we did when we developed the PMO competence framework is we absolutely focused on behaviors, because we identified, we all know those people who kind of know their stuff in project and program management, who perhaps take a PMO role, but actually we'd rather not want to work with them. And so we identified that actually to be a truly competent PMO person, the behaviors were actually critical. And we did identify kind of 16 individual behaviors. And it's interesting in terms of, some of the things that have already been mentioned or there in that list in terms of having a growth mindset, working with kind of passion and compassion with the people who are working with, but also be tenacious and act assertively. I think there's a couple of others that I just really want to pull out, because I think it's in a lot of the within we don't necessarily have the authority to make the decision. We is based on kind of the influence that we have, but the ability to kind of ask questions, probe and challenge in a curious, and actually kind of be curious and provide feedback to people who are working in and around projects is really important.
Yes, interesting. So I think we need empathy in here. We need the ability to deal with people. We need facilitation skills. So there are quite a few different options and different skill sets that we need here in order to make this all work. So I think that if you are pursuing a career in how to become a PMO specialist, developing some of those core skills alongside your PMO technical skills would probably be a smart move. So, Adrian, I'm going to come to you last because I think you entered the question. I'm sure you've got some comments on it.
I have very little to add other than the thorough multidimensional answers that my colleagues have given. This is one thing I will pick up on, I think, and that's in addition to one or two things that Sarbojit was sort of saying, and it's kind of the ability to understand the areas of work that the projects are in and are involved in. So it's not just project management. And Sarbojit talked, for example, about things like SAFE and everything. So now SAFE, of course, is a software development construct for scaling software development, and very commonly you get IT enabled projects in programs and within the sort of portfolio. So being able to understand those different approaches as well and be able to learn about them in their relationship to project management is also useful as well, because things like SAFE and Scrum and other software development approaches, they are not project management, and it's such a common error that gets made in many organizations. So the ability to understand those differences is also really, really useful.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Adrian. And I think it was a great question because it set us up for describing the types of skills that we needed to be able to become a successful PMO specialist here. Charlotte, may we take our next question? I can see the live questions are stacking up, so let's get stuck in.
Certainly can. We've got a question from Angelo, who is a live LinkedIn viewer. They ask, how does change management influence the role of the PMO?
Interesting question. How does change management influence the role of a PMO? So, I think there's a lot to that question to unpack, really, because change management is an entire discipline on its own. But there's no doubt that PMO needs to have some sort of change management understanding as well. Panel, what are your thoughts? Who would like to go first? Sarbojit.
Right. I would like to start with the thing is, it's an old saying that we say that the only thing constant in life is change. So things are changing all around us, everywhere. Organizations are also getting undergoing different changes, and today we are talking about transformation, digital transformation, and all these things. So an organization to have a transformation, it doesn't need to be a business project. It can be an organization transformation project that a PMO might require to also handle and manage under their belt. So the tool of change management, and we know the change management is an entire different and a specific discipline by itself, and it has got its own processes and its own teams and structure and everything. So when a PMO is, what they're trying to do is also bringing in new changes, new transformations to an organization. So having a good integration with the change management process of the organization, or it can be that they have their own change management methodology that they want to profess throughout the organization. Either way, it is very, very critical. Now, today, if we look into ITIL, we see there are two kinds of changes. One is organization change, and another one is the change enablement of our processes and procedures. So, for the PMO, it is the both such changes that they would need to be, managing and handling on a day-to-day basis.
Thanks, Sarbojit. Agree with you there. I think, Holger, you wanted to add something to this.
Yeah, I think first is clarification on the term change management. What does it actually mean? I can think at least of 3 variants, and we can probably add a few we go around. There's change management, i.e. putting things from, in the old ways, from development into life. There is change management as an interpretation of the life cycle of change, from an idea to implementation to run it in business as usual. And there's a third component, which is typically concerned with the people aspect of probably the other 2. So I assume change management here reflects on the people aspect. The PMO, I believe, can help and support any efforts that are made by anyone in the organization who are concerned with the people aspects. They can make them understand what the change impact is, for example. And I've seen that being utilized quite extensively. Everybody thinks almost in a silo about their undertaking and their project. Someone needs to put the mirror up and say, those people have 5 projects going live in that quarter. Do you think they can digest number 6 and number 7? So forth. So there are different roles the PMO can do to support those endeavors and making sure people don't get overchanged, if I can use that term.
Yeah. Thanks, Holger. And I think that this question should be thought of in the context of organizational change management, which is about the people. So really integrating organizational change management throughout the PMO practices is probably not a bad idea when you think about it. Eileen, I think you had some comments on this, and then we'll go to Josyph.
Just a little bit to add as well in terms of from a PMO perspective. Although people always look at the PMO as kind of supporting individual projects and programs, a key role, particularly of organizational PMOs, is to support the organization at the portfolio level, work with business as usual to deliver the strategy. So a key role of the organizational PMO is to make sure that any changes are properly embedded in the organization and the benefits are actually delivered. So there's a key role there to monitor benefits realization, but also that transformation of the PMO. And even if you haven't got your change management embedded within the project management methodology, the PMO still has a role of pulling that all together to show how the changes the projects have delivered in the organization.
I totally agree. Makes perfect sense. Josyph, your thoughts?
I believe change management influences the role of the PMO in 2 ways. It first maintains a big picture understanding of the business change portfolio, and it also basically assists in improving organization and accountability, decision making, transparency, and visibility. Once you have those 2 concepts combined, you can actually go back to the behavioral aspects of this relationship, which is you can always ask for people's respect, but rarely you can get the responsiveness. And that is where the change management characteristics of a project influences the role of the PMO, because PMOs can be directive, they could be focused on compliance or auditing or value for money or protecting the reputation and stakeholders' confidence of their project portfolio. So the relationship may shift depending on the objective and the outcome that you're trying to achieve. So yes, the relationship is an important one. There are 2 aspects of project management, in my opinion. Projects is all about embedding change. You cannot see change management separate from project management. The focus is different. One of them is focused on the people and the responses to change, while the other is focused on every single aspect of specialty project management, which is all of the areas project management, program management, and portfolio management cover, which is quite extensive if you get into it.
It sure is. I think your answer is probably going to resonate with a lot of people out there, Josyph, because what you were saying makes sense completely. I think a lot of us have experienced that in our daily work, and especially of those of you involved with either the change management or the PMO side or both. it's a challenge, right? And everybody's under stress. Everybody's trying to get things done. PMOs have got to answer back to the stakeholders. They've got to give them the reporting. They've got to understand governance. And being directive doesn't necessarily achieve the best results, right, at the end of the day. So, okay, I think, Adrian, you wanted to add something quickly before we move on.
Yeah, it's almost tying everything that's been said together. Throughout my entire career, change management or transformation has had a wider scope than project program portfolio management and therefore PMOs, because it reaches right back into the strategic level for a start. But the mechanism for managing the delivery of change has equally always been the same as project, program, and portfolio management. And I still see nothing coming along to better it. And in point of fact, the 3 Ps profession, if you like, has been evolving to basically handle the scale, handle the complexity more and more ever since the 1980s when I was a callow youth. So the only bit that's point number one. Point number two, there are some things that are trying to invade space, and this is actually coming from the world of agility. We mentioned SAFe earlier. There are some people who are trying to make things like SAFe replace project portfolio, project program portfolio management. It's not designed for it, and it's a mistake to try and use it. SAFe is fantastic in its space. It is not there to manage the delivery of change. And things like it from the agile software development space should not be dropped into the project space. And the key and the role of PMOs in the middle of all that, it's the thing that helps keep the ship of change on course.
Yep, agree with you there. It's the glue that keeps everything moving and keeps everything stuck together where it should be stuck together. And I think that's a great analogy as well. But guys, I think we've got so many live questions stacking up here. I think let's move on quite quickly now. Charlotte, next question, please.
Thanks, Nigel. We've got a question from a live LinkedIn viewer at Mira. Can a business analyst become a PMO?
Well, interesting. I think a business analyst cannot become a PMO on their own, but I think they could become a PMO specialist, most certainly. Who would like to take a crack at answering this one? Do you think a business analyst could become a PMO specialist? Eileen, what are your thoughts?
Okay, I think business analysis is definitely a key skill that's used by a PMO, and I think there's a number of areas that it can be used. So, firstly, in terms of actually just providing a service out to individual projects, in terms of what changes involved in their project, so we can actually kind of have that as a service at the PMO. But I also think one of the key things that we do in the PMO is a bit like what Holger was referring to earlier, is being able to do that analysis around all of the different projects and how the organization is going to move over the next 6 to 9 months. So really interesting as a new project comes into play about looking at what the organization will look like in 6 to 9 months' time because other projects and programs have gone live.
Okay, very interesting indeed. Josyph, you wanted to answer this as well.
I just briefly wanted to say a person who has the capability to be a business analyst or provide the services of business analysis can always find a role in a PMO. And analysis work within the project management office is evolving, not only as a service, but also with technology. I'm hearing concepts now that I've never heard before, like technology delivery office, which is a PMO for technology projects. And then all of these BAs are now product owners. So they change the role, they perform the same function, things are misnomed and they change, but the basics remain the same, which is a person who understands the requirements of the users. In this case, the PMO as a service concept has users of those services, the stakeholders, the sponsor, the director of the program. the program manager that you may report into, the project board, they call it steering committees or whatever structure of governance you have in place. Analysis needs to be developed on different aspects. You can have strategic planning and portfolio support functions or services that need to be analyzed, and the data needs to be understood and explained. You have the delivery support functions and services as well, and the center of excellence concept, which is very useful when you actually start applying standard methods, frameworks, artifacts, and the different techniques that business analysts can quickly pick up and start performing analysis to serve the stakeholders better, all with the intention of reporting and providing assistance in making decisions. So there will always be a role for a business analyst in a PMO if they're willing to be curious enough about changing their mindset from requirements gathering and facilitation to actually influence with their analysis at least 3 options of a decision. Do something, do nothing, or just do the minimum, but some analysis is definitely required.
I totally agree with you there. And you know what? We have a fantastic course called Agile Business Analysis, and it covers exactly those concepts and topics. Holger, your thoughts, please.
We have probably quite an extensive list of years together in terms of experience, but if we cast our minds back where we started in our respective careers, it might not have been called a business analyst, but a lot of the work that we did was associated with analyzing something that was associated with a business. For me, it's a foundational skill set that people build up. And as Josyph pointed out, that can be reutilized across the organization. Either you become an expert in that topic, or you take your foundational level of expertise across to another business function, or, dare I say it, that other business function might be the PMO.
Interesting thought. Absolutely. Thanks, Holger. Okay, we're going to move along quite quickly now because we've got a lot of live questions and I'd like to get it through as many of them as we can for the audience. So, Charlotte, may we have our next question, please?
You can, Nigel. It's a live question from Nazira. I have HR management experience and I've also been studying project management. Do you have any advice to get a hiring employer to recognize my skills for a PMO role?
Okay, I think Adrian had his hand up first, then we'll move to Eileen.
I'm probably going to steal Eileen's thunder here, so I apologize in advance. I think this is entirely about transferable skills. I think this is a question of identifying what skills you have in the HR management role, and then mapping them across to PMO roles, and then sort of selling on that basis, because in a sense, that's what you're doing. That's it.
Okay, fantastic. Eileen, your thoughts?
Well, interestingly, my first job in a PMO was from an HR role, and I came in from HR because I was forecasting resource usage on projects and programs for the next 6 to 12 months. So I was kind of forecasting resources, helping the organisation identify where those resources were coming from, and also got involved in costing of projects based on the resources that were going to be used. And I have to say, benefits management has long been a problem in a lot of organizations that PMOs have helped now to address. And we know that the most difficult problem that organizations are trying to get overcome at the moment, whether they be agile or kind of traditional PMOs, is resource management. So having an understanding of capability development, capacity planning at an organizational level, but actually just the mechanics of resource allocation is absolutely critical, and PMOs are really kind of looking out for that at the moment. So if you can got experience in that area, then you've got a definite role there in PMOs at the moment.
Well, yeah, absolutely right. I agree with you. Holger, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, a quick sentence. It reminded me of a quote by one of my mentors very early on in my career. He said, "Holger, I know you haven't worked in my department. I'd like you to do the job. Don't forget the fundamental rule. 50% is what you bring to the job, and 50% is what you take from it and learn." And I think it's an interesting concept, and echoing what Eileen said, for example, you bring something to the fore, demand management, resource management, the like. There's a strong angle to that, but otherwise, it's your career and you want to develop, and your organization should help you doing that. So good luck with the interview.
Yeah, good luck. And I hope that answers your question. Very interesting and good answers there. Thanks, team. Charlotte, let's move on if we may.
Thanks, Nigel. Another live question from Mohammed on LinkedIn. Is a project manager responsible for managing projects while a PMO is responsible for guidance and development?
Sarbojit, why don't you start us off on this, and then we'll move to Josyph.
Yeah. Mohammed, that's a very nice question. And if you remember the first question that we had, and we discussed about the PMO skills and who are the PMO specialists. So, yeah, project managers are responsible for managing a project, and the people who enable the project managers to do their job on a regular basis by guiding them, developing them, helping them, and also by providing the governance so as to ensure that the project are on track and everything is doing good in the project or program, whatever the managers are managing in under their care. So PMO has a very critical role to play to the success of projects as well. It's not only the project managers, but it's also the supply line that the project managers depend upon, which is the PMO. So if that supply line is lost, as we know in battles, if the supply line is cut, even if you have the best army of the world and ammunitions, you might not win the war. So the same thing goes here as well. We will have to have the PMO provide all the inputs for the project managers so the projects can be successful and so the organization can have their new implementations done.
Excellent. Thank you. Josyph, you wanted to add something briefly.
Thank you. So is a project manager responsible for managing projects? Absolutely. The project manager will have that responsibility, and it is on them to deliver. Their focus is on driving the teams, reporting on progress, and definitely achieving that output for the organization. While a PMO is usually responsible for gathering the data, the need for program and project data standardization and data quality, sometimes owning the tools the organization have for reporting on projects. It could be Jira Services, it could be Microsoft Project, it could be so many tools that are available now, software available, that guiding those techniques to utilize those tools and doing the automation of business processes to improve compliance with those business processes, improve the timelines of decision support information, making sure that done on time to align with the cycle of the organization. So their focus is more on aggregating, analyzing the data, and making sure that everything makes sense at a higher level. And there's different levels of PMOs. You can have multiple projects at the project level PMO, 5 projects or less. Sometimes you have 30. You need a program to manage so many projects, something that spans multiple years. Sometimes you have a combination of both, and you're a CEO sitting on $100 million and 50 project managers delivering across the country in different geographical settings with different timesheets, time zone requirements, and it can be a little bit cumbersome to just gather all of this data in a cycle that meets the organizational cycle. If you're in Australia, you report from June to June. If you're in the US, from December to December. If you're in Japan, from August to August. So that complexity is also part of the PMO strategy.
Excellent. You're absolutely right. Eileen, if you want to add something briefly to this.
I would just really I think underpins the breadth of the roles that are in a PMO, because absolutely the role of the PMO is there to manage, and they have accountability for delivery. And we should never assume that responsibility and be able to kind of tell the project and program managers what to do. But in terms of what the PMO brings, it can either be hands-on support, so you're working as a kind of directly for the project manager and you're supporting them in their kind of day-to-day role. So you might facilitate a risk workshop for them, you might kind of collect some information from reports on them, you might pull together the project schedule for them. At the other end of that is actually you might be the project specialist and therefore the person who trains up the project manager, who tells them this is the way we do it in this organization, this is how we follow these processes. So you're providing advice and guidance and almost kind of consultancy to the project. So and almost kind of anything in between. So I think it can be more than just guidance and development. It can actually be kind of support on the delivery, but under the direction of the PMO, under the direction of the project manager, not as somebody who's accountable for delivery.
Makes sense. Thank you very much, panel. Okay, I think we've got time to squeeze in one, maybe two more questions. Charlotte, let's have our next question, please.
Thanks, Nigel. Live question, LinkedIn viewer Jesus. Challenging projects are great, but can bring stress into our personal lives. How important is keeping physically active to manage stress and mental well-being?
Okay, interesting question. It's not necessarily PMO related, but I think that there's a valid point behind this, which is, people who work in a PMO can get enormously stressed depending on the culture that you're working in. Adrian, what are your thoughts here briefly?
I think two things. First of all, there is the organization culture bit about not thinking that people can work at high stress levels for long periods of time. And that's the responsibility, a leadership responsibility that organizations have. The other thing comes down to the individualist. If I've always liked to swim, most of my life. So, a level of fitness is important. But whether you're a fitness person or you like to read a book, I think getting that kind of work-life balance, and in these days of hybrid sort of working, part in the office, part at home, or whatever, finding the right balance that works for you, your organization, your employer, I think is critical and is very much a sign of the times.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, Adrian. So I think anybody who's looking to become a PMO specialist, bear in mind that it can be a pretty high-stress job and you need to be quite stress resilient. You need to find those mechanisms with the support of your organization as well that will help you alleviate that stress. So, okay, Charlotte, can we move on and take another question, please?
We can. We've got a question from one of our previous panelists, Falco Werner. Are there PMOs only in classical project-driven waterfall organizations?
Interesting. Okay. I think short answers, please, panel. I don't think we need long answers for this one. Josyph and then Adrian.
Okay, so there's definitely not only PMOs in the classical project-driven waterfall organizational sense anymore. Currently, I'm working as part of a PMO focus only on technology delivery projects. We have roughly around 35 projects and 300 more in the pipeline. All of them span from application development, infrastructure, network redesign, data, telephony, new offices, property management, and everything that encompasses the technology portfolio at the federal government agency level. So it affects around 10,000 users in the organization and about 500,000 people on the ground. So this is definitely not a waterfall PMO. Is agile, is safe, is waterfall. There's PMP people there, there's APMG, there's AIPM. There are people that speak frameworks that I never even heard of that are some sort of agile scrum band combination of wagile and fragile to agile, whatever you want to call them. There's
We've got everything in there.
Yes. So our premise when we set up this organization was mainly we don't want to dictate and tell project managers how to do their job. That's what we hire them for. They are the professional. They're smarter people than I am. they tell me how they want to manage their projects. However, there are certain bits of information that we need of them, regardless if they put it on a post-it note or enter into the software. And that is, how long is it going to take it to deliver? How much money do you need to spend? And are we going to get a return on investment? Are there any benefits? Describe them. And regardless, the documentation component needs to be there, whether it's waterfall or agile. I don't care. As long as you deliver your project plan, your business case, and have your schedule, and make sure you report on a fortnightly basis or weekly basis to us with traffic lights that everyone likes.
Excellent. Thank you, Josyph. Adrian, your comments briefly, and then Holger to finish us off.
Okay, I need to take a deep breath here. I probably blog about this more than anything else. Look, folks, waterfall is a life cycle. That's all it is. There is no such thing as a waterfall approach in either project management or software development. There's no evidence that there is any such thing. And it really is there are few things are simple. That's one of them. Programs can have any flaming life cycle they like, or especially in a program, combination of life cycles. The project profession is about an awful lot more than a life cycle. So please, can we stop talking about waterfall project management or waterfall software development? It's a nonsense.
Well, I'm glad you feel strongly about it, Adrian, and I think the point you make is very valid. Very, very valid indeed. Thank you. Holger, last comment before we move to our closing comments.
Adrian, kindred spirit, I found. Thanks for that. Me being the author of the article, The Mystery of the Waterfall Methodology. That's one of my blogs. So I'm 100% with you. I probably would ask Falco more to look into the terminology. People move on and they try, possibly from a software vendor or consultancy perspective, including me, there's a different terminology we need to adopt, partially driven by the Agile community, but also by others. So whether it's a value management office, VMO, a transformation management office, TMO, a value realization office, a portfolio office, God knows, I have no idea how many terms we have describing something probably when you look under the hood, very similar and defined by the services they provide. So for me, waterfall is the non-existing delivery approach. And if you operate at enterprise level in a PMO, ultimately, it shouldn't matter. You have governance arrangements to deal with whatever the delivery approach is. I simply exclude that from the considerations when I put PMO or enterprise governance in place.
Okay, excellent. All right, thank you very much. Unfortunately for today, we have run out of time. So I just want to thank our excellent producers online. Really, you guys have given us some fantastic questions, and I apologize, we're going to be 1 or 2 minutes over time. But let's just walk around the panel for your brief closing remarks. We'll start with Eileen and then move to Sarbojit.
Okay, great to talk about all things PMO. One of the great things is, I think, regardless of where you come from, whether it be senior management, project management, administration, or any element, there's a role we can find and use you in the PMO. And just to kind of a heads up, we've got on the 9th of May this year, we've got our first International PMO Day. So go and find the website and you'll see how lots of people are going to be celebrating what they do and kind of their teams in PMO. So it gives you a really good insight.
Fantastic. Thank you. Sarbojit, your final thoughts.
Yeah, and it's for those people, in working that be also concerned that there are value management coming in and product management. So project to products, all these things are changing. So we may have to change the way we think and work in the future in PMO.
Makes perfect sense. Josyph, what are your closing comments?
I encourage anyone who wants to jump into this field with an open mind. There's so much to learn, so many techniques, so many challenges, behavioral change, project delivery. If you're someone who likes to actually get things done, there's a space for you. If you like to think about them, there's a space for you. If you like to talk about it, there's also a space for you and bring your opinion into it and your own flavor to it. It's an ever-growing field. I think the next 20 years is going to be very exciting. You have the combination of cyber, project, change, technology, AI, chat, GPT stuff that, tender responses are going to be automated. My GPT is going to write my speeches, my articles, my social media, and even my project reporting. So as a human being, I have to go and bring my own concepts to challenge the AI's speed with intelligence and experience. So it's going to be very exciting. Just like in the game of chess, you have a chess player with an AI challenging another chess player with another AI. It grows the field even further.
It does. Thank you, Josyph. Thank you. Holger, your final closing comments.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised today we didn't talk about potentially the negative stigma that some people associate with the term PMO, and that it is associated with administration and menial support services that would be provided. For those who haven't heard it, it is changing. If it ever was that way in the past, it will develop eventually, at least on the enterprise level, into a strategic analysis function, helping the organization where to invest. That's an exciting journey. And if you contemplate wherever you are in your career to move to a PMO and become a specialist at whatever level, it's an exciting times to join, drive the profession forward, drive the reputation of a PMO forward, and ultimately be personally successful. So anyone who is interested, give us a call, or probably speak on behalf of everybody. We're passionate about the topic. Let your passion guide you and join us.
Fantastic. Adrian, your final comments, please.
Yeah, really extending on what Holger's just saying. Not that many years ago, the average life expectancy of an enterprise PMO was about 18 months before organizations said, hey, our projects are doing well, we don't need them anymore, so to come all apart. But as Sarbojit said earlier, the projectization of activity in organizations has really meant that enterprise PMOs are now becoming a far more constant and important mechanism in the organization. So it really is a great environment for someone to develop a career, even for junior project managers to go into for a period to hone in detail their technical and behavioral project management skills.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And last but not least, Charlotte, what are your closing comments for today?
I just want to say a massive thank you to all our panelists to help us produce such a fantastic episode today. We've got some amazing comments from all of our viewers in the chat. And just to say thank you for all the amazing questions from our viewers. Couldn't have done it without you.
Couldn't have, and I totally agree with you there, Charlotte. What I can say is, I think if you were ever in doubt about how to become a PMO specialist, or should you become a PMO specialist, today's panel should have swayed you in a positive way, obviously. So, all right, thank you. We're well over time, so I'm going to wrap through the closing comments quickly. So thank you, everybody. Well done. Over on our website, you can search for the answers to over 1,500 live questions, all answered and comprehensively indexed for you to go and listen to and read whenever you want to, from 180 experts around the world. If you also want to, you can listen to the audio podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. Also, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It really doesn't cost you anything, but it helps new folks discover this content. So that's great. So looking forward, on Monday, the 27th, 8 a.m. GMT, we're going to be looking at building your project management career. On Friday the 31st at 2 o'clock, we're going to delve into design thinking. Just be aware that's a Polish language event. All of those details are on apmginternational.com. Subscribe to the show. We'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Again, thanks everybody. See you on the next show.